to the investment launch of Romford. I work in the origination team here at Shojin. So this video I'll take you through the project overview, the location, the actual investment itself, and what you can expect as a return profile and the risks associated with those returns. Yeah, so starting off with a summary. The project is, the actual loan size is 1.675 million and achieving returns of 16 to 20% annualized returns. The project is going to run for 21 months and that is made up of a 15 months construction and 6 months for sales. So the plan permission is for 46 residential units and 1 large ground floor commercial unit. The developer is the firm is actually called Prime Phoenix, and they are the developer / main contractor for the project. They have a history of working on luxury developments in the UK, mainly in around London and the southeast, but also regional as well. The project is located in Romford, which is in the outer London metropolitan area. It's located in the London borough of Havering, and what makes the location particularly attractive is that it's on the Elizabeth line, which is the new constructed rail line that links Romford with the rest of London, connecting it with the underground system. Now, in the particular micro location of Romford, it's within the outer rim of the town centre, so it's very walkable distance to lots of amenities and the main shopping centres and stations in the local area. So, as you can see from the slide, it is located walking distance from Tube / train station and the Liberty shopping centre. Yeah, as I said before, it's in Romford. It's located in the London borough of Havering, so it's kind of east of central London. It's undergoing substantial investment for regenerating the area in terms of providing housing, leisure centres, and as I touched on before, the transport. So about the development specifically, the scheme is made up of 46 residential units and 1 large ground floor commercial unit space, which could be used. So it could be used as for many different use classes. So it could be used as a bank or a local supermarket or a bar or any kind of amenity that will be appropriate for the area, which should increase footfall to the area and also make it more attractive for the residential units. Prime Phoenix, as I touched on before, the developer, but also acting as the main contractor for the project. So with their experience in luxury residential projects, they've got 5 schemes over the past 6 years that are worth over 36 million GDV. And these schemes have been in highly profitable, high quality, of course, being luxury spec and sustainable. So the security that we hold over the investment is a pretty standard package that we have with all of our projects. So we have second charge over the property, and that's after the first charge from the senior lender. We have a debenture over the property. We have a debenture over the borrower SPV behind the senior lender. And we have a limited personal guarantee of 50%, which is quite a substantial personal guarantee, and a limited cost overrun guarantee of 10%, which also covers us for increasing construction costs. So for the exit plan for Prime Phoenix, they do intend to hold all of the residential units after practical completion and retain them through a refinance. but they also intend to sell the ground floor commercial unit. Shojin's exposure to the project is standing at 78% loan to GDV. So if in the refinance scenario that the value doesn't stretch quite to the amount that we are exposed to the project in terms of value, then the borrower will look to sell some of the units to be able to give Shojin a clean exit out of the project, or some other form of way of providing another source of income to pay off the remainder of our facility. Or the developer does have the option still to sell on the open market. The total worth GDV, the gross development value of the project is 16.625 million. So they do have that option as well. So going into the financial section now, as I touched on just, the GDV is worth 6.625 million, and that's mainly made up of the private residential units, and that's equating to 15.635 million, and the commercial unit is just under 1 million. The pure build costs is at 6.40 million, and that's at just under 147 pounds per square foot. The build costs are able to be reduced from the developers' contacts with their good relationship with their contractors. So they've historically had worked with the same contractor, being able to provide preferential rates, which is proves that provides a lot of profit within the deal, basically. So we can see here, the ungeared profit on cost is very high at 44%. So moving into the debt financials, the gross facility for the senior debt is at 10.5 million. And that equates to a loan to GDV at 63%. So taking all the funding costs into account, including the interest and fees, the geared profit on cost is 29.5%, which is very healthy, which is quite high in terms, considering that our minimum target is at 20%, so we're well above our target there. So taking into the gross facility of the senior and the the geared costs, that leaves a shortfall of just over 2 million. So this is where our junior debt facility comes in. So we're exposing ourselves to 78% loan to GDV with a 1.675 million facility, and we are it's being charged at 24% to the developer, which is achieving at 700,000 estimated estimated interest value. So the developer is putting in just under 450,000, and they are seeing a 2.9 million pound profit. This is achieved by the GDV value uplift. It's very strong value uplift from the costs to construct the site, which is also a preferential low rate of per square foot from the developer having good relationships with their subcontractors. So moving on to this next table here, which shows a sensitivity table, which basically is designed to test our financials to see how well risk adjusted they are. So it's a two-tiered sensitivity table which tests our ability to retain investor capital and retain the 18% fixed annualized return for investors. So along the top, you can see here the table is increasing the construction costs by 5%, and on the left-hand side you can see it is decreasing the GDV. So it's testing how much can we stretch both sides of those metrics to see how well adjusted we are. So we can see here that in the top left-hand box, the green box, is our expected scenario. So the GDV being 16.625 million and the pure build cost at 6.480 million. So the red, amber and green is a representation of the green represents the amount of times that we retain all the investor capital and the investor return, and where it starts to turn yellow and then amber is when we start to be impacted should the GDV and construction costs behave in those ways. So where we can see where it begins to turn yellow is where the GDV is decreased by 20% and the construction costs are increased by 5%, and so that it starts to infiltrate into the investors' interest earned, and we can see that investors would earn 17.3% in this scenario, and then it goes down to start being affected, the invested capital to be affected. The GDV would have to decrease by 25%, and that would represent a capital retention of 93.4%. So you can see that we're very well protected, that the GDV would have to drop by at least 20% for us to be affected, and the construction costs having a bit of a lighter impact on the overall profitability or capital retention and profitability of the scheme. So we can see that we're very well protected. So moving on to the actual investment opportunity, the junior loan has a fixed return. So the annualized interest that investors will receive depends on the amount of investor capital that they wish to proceed with. So investors who are invested between £5,000 and £10,000 will earn 16% per annum, and investors between 10 and 50,000 will earn 17%. Investors between 50,000 and 100,000 will earn 18%, and all investors that invest over £100,000 will earn 20% per annum. And remembering that the project will span over 21 months. So moving on to risks. So as with any development project, it has risks with build costs and timings of the construction program. So build costs could increase with construction cost inflation. And with this particular project, there is a risk with right of light. So given that the building is 4 to 6 stories in height, the neighbouring properties will probably suffer from some light obstruction. But to protect investors with this, the developer is commissioning a right of light survey to assess the impact, and then we can take out subsequent insurance to protect the whole value of the site. So this risk is going to be well protected in due course. And also particle agreements. So we need to ensure that the developer has particle agreements in place before they start any major groundwork construction to neighbouring properties, which is all built into the construction schedule. So it's just something to keep in mind for us to track. And generally the finance risk of the project. So UK interest rates are set to increase this year as is expected from the Bank of England. So we have to take that into account in terms of our senior financing, as the rate of interest will go up with the base rate increases, but that is expected across all our investments. and we do forecast those into our models, which we can see that they don't affect our retention of capital and investor return. And there's a general risk of exit. So there's the demand for the units might not be as highly as we anticipate, and the exit value might be affected by general market movements. So thank you. That's the end of the slideshows. If you want to find out more information on projects, you can get in touch with Igor Gobatsevich, Onak Shah, or Jimmy Lung. They're our investor relations team. So if you do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to them. Thank you.